I just love the insanity of arcades, with their flashing lights and their weird and inventive games, all fighting for your attention. Where else will you get to flip a table on your family, or play games while you're peeing? The inventiveness is truly mind-blowing. Just look at this game called Bonga Bonga, where you get to perform the classic move on unsuspecting victims. A bit creepy, but you also gotta love those Japanese game designers who came up with this type of nonsense. Growing up in the 90s, my brother and I were taken from rest stop to rest stop on our road trip vacations to Germany. These stops were some of the highlights of the vacations, as all rest stops back then had tons of arcade machines like Super Pang and Asterix. This is probably where I fell in love with these coin-operated entertainment machines, and I still love them to this day. Arcade games are designed to be easy to pick up and play, but also to be so challenging that your money are gone after just a minute or two. So it feels like a real accomplishment when you beat the machine and squeeze out a few extra seconds of game time. And screw those redemption arcade machines where you play for tickets or prizes, as they give you no sense of real accomplishment, and they are mostly just money grabs. Yes, I'm talking about you, Keymaster, and you, Flappy Birds. The crane games are okay though, especially if you know how to use them right. But let's get to it. Here are my top 10 favorite arcade games of all time. We start with a silly one. Number 10 is Arm Champs 2, a sequel to a game that actually broke people's arms. The game series came out in the midst of the epic Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling movie Over the Top, and it totally lives up to its inspiration with its hilarious gallery of over-the-top characters. In this ladder-based arm wrestling game, you start out by wrestling Trixie, a female bodybuilder from Russia.
Never underestimate a woman.
And you end up fighting the robot-armed wrestler Specs. Along the way, you have to beat several silly characters, including Saddam Hussein. As a teenager, we couldn't beat the game honestly, so we had to be two kids hanging on the arm to beat the strongest opponents, which is probably why a lot of these machines broke. Arm Champs 2 is my favorite game in the prove your strength genre of arcade games, which also includes notable entries such as the punch ball machine and the grip strength tester. Is there any better way to impress your friends or a date than to show them how strong your grip is? Of course not. Number 9 is another game filled with meatheads. It is Windjammers, an addicting competitive flying disc game which is basically a combination of volleyball and Pong. You can score either by making the disc pass your opponent or by making drop balls. And as with most competitive arcade games, it also comes with insane super moves. The game is super intuitive to pick up, but it takes a lifetime to master, which is probably why the game is still going strong. It is even still played in international fighting game tournaments, and a sequel has recently been released. This game is guaranteed to be a hit at the arcade. Number 8 is Pac-Man. Pac-Man is the oldest video game on the list. It is still as iconic today as when it came out back in 1980. In this maze action game, Pac-Man has to pop all the pills on the screen before the ghosts catch him. I don't know if this is some sort of metaphor, but the game is super hard. And if you make it any further than past the third intermission, you are a bit of a hero. Or even better, get to the kill screen. Number 7 is the iconic and hyper-violent fighting game Mortal Kombat. The game had all parents in the USA fear for their children.
I don't think they'll have this at home, no.
You think so?
A little bit too violent.
You look a little startled.
Yeah, it's a little too violent, I think.
I guess it was too much for them to see digitized humans ripping off each other's heads. If you knew the button combinations for the fatalities, you were guaranteed to be the center of attention at the arcade, because these moves were originally meant to be secret, and you couldn't just look them up on the internet. But I guess random button mashing has its uses. Mortal Kombat is the only fighting game on the list, though arcades had plenty of other great games in the genre. The biggest rival to Mortal Kombat was of course Street Fighter 2, and its many incarnations. But games like Virtual Fighter, The King of Fighters and Tekken were awesome too. Another favorite genre of mine is light gun shooters. These games just felt so futuristic and immersive when they first came out. Just point your plastic gun at the screen and bam, you take out whichever enemy you are pointing at. Some of the most popular light gun shooters were Terminator 2, The House of the Dead 2, Carnival and Ghost Squad, and they all had one thing in common: hilariously bad acting.
You've been surrounded. Release the hostages and surrender.
This leads us to number 6, which is Time Crisis 2. The game has this innovative cover mechanism that takes its immersion to the next level, and the game also feels less unfair than most of its competitors. I first played the game in a small surfer town where we used to go camping, and whenever there was no wind, we went there and spent all our money on Time Crisis 2. I was never super good at the game, but 2 guys we met there were able to complete the entire game on just a single quarter. I guess that long vacations in small towns with little to do make people pick up the weirdest skills. When the Nintendo Wii was released in 2006, you could finally play these light gun shooters in your own home.
This place is pretty spooky.
What the? Are you holding my hand?
Yes.
I ain't your mama. Get the fuck off of me.
My current favorite games in the genre are House of the Dead, Overkill and Ghost Squad. It sucks that newer consoles don't make games like these anymore.
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go.
Number 5 is the intense and hectic Crazy Taxi. Pick up customers, push the pedal to the metal, and drive recklessly through the city to drop them off at their favorite destinations for time bonuses and tips. The game is so much fun, and I still often play it at our local arcade. Gotta get that high score. The game is best played at the arcade, where you have a steering wheel, a speeder and a comfortable seat. The game also has a super iconic soundtrack with punk rock music from the early 2000s, with bands like The Offspring and Green Day. The game is so simple, but if you want to take the high score, you'll have to memorize the city and its many shortcuts by heart, and you'll have to master the sliding stops. The graphics in Crazy Taxi looked awesome for its time, and it was one of the first games that featured a destructible environment and non-playable characters jumping in all directions. It is crazy good. Number 4 takes the driving experience to the next level. It is Daytona USA 2. It is probably one of the longest living arcade games in Denmark, as these machines are just so robust and so much fun. These machines have buttery smooth 60Hz graphics, force feedback steering wheels, surround sound speakers, and a crash impact generator system for total immersion. The game's greatest feature is, however, that you can link up to 16 cars for heads-on racing. I've only tried linking 4 machines, which was awesome, but I hope that I one day will get the full experience. A feature of the game that is a bit more divisive is the easy catch feature, which is kind of like in Mario Kart, where the first place will never get out of reach. So if you want to set lap time records, just take it super easy the first lap, and then on the second lap you'll get a speed boost. This feature, however, isn't all bad, as it makes every run feel super competitive, which means that you'll have to pop in some more coins for a rematch. But if you don't want that feature to be turned on, there's a secret button combination where you can actually turn it off. Playing the game, I have only ever been able to complete the first 2 levels, but one day when I get better at drafting and drifting, I'll beat the machine. Number 3 is basketball. Sure, you could just go to your local basketball court and shoot hoops, and it would be all the same, right? No! Setting records at your local arcade will give you so much street cred. All the geeks would want to shake your hand and bow to you. I would definitely bow to this guy on the left, as he has some serious skills. Whether you're playing on a super MVP or a super shot machine, you're guaranteed to have fun. And even your mom can join the fun, as anyone knows how to throw a basketball. Number 2 is yet another sports game. It is air hockey, an analog version of Pong, that feels like magic with its frictionless surface and its black lights. Air hockey is truly one of those games that take a second to learn and a lifetime to master. Though the game was invented back in 1969, it still has large annual tournaments all over the world, including the European and the World Championships. The air hockey table has had several weird incarnations throughout the years, such as the 2 vs 2 machines with mini pucks and tables with curved surfaces. But my favorite has to be the clean and simplistic classic table, where no distractions will get between you and your adversary. I also wanted to put the cousin of air hockey on this list, which is foosball, as it has always been among my favorite bar games. As the game is neither electromechanical or a video game, I guess it is not an arcade game, so I'll have to do a separate video on that alone. Before we jump to the first place, I have a few more honorable mentions in addition to the games I've already mentioned throughout the video. We have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, which is one of those awesome side-scrollers. We have the old school Donkey Kong, which has a super recommendable documentary. We have Space Invaders.
Space Invaders.
No, the Space Invaders video game. We have Gyrus, Burger Time, and Robotron 2084. We have the Bullet Hell game 1984. We have Super Mario Kart Grand Prix. We have the rare but awesome Strata bowling game. And finally, we have Scotto, the Japanese beer pong game. And now to number 1. The first place belongs to my favorite arcade genre, which is rhythm games. I've already made 2 videos about my favorite rhythm games of all time. So for those of you who have already watched those videos, it will come as no surprise that my favorite arcade game of all time is My My. Many have attempted to copy this washing machine rhythm game, but all have failed. The bright and colorful My My machines have one of the best music libraries of any rhythm game that includes pop music, rock music, and anime tunes that kick ass. And the library is constantly being updated. The buttons on the machine make this super satisfying snap when you hit them, and the audio feedback is delightful too. Also, when your hands slide across the touchscreen patterns, you feel like some hand dancer from the future. The Japanese keep pushing the limits of what experiences can be had in arcades, and the next big trends have already started with epic virtual reality experiences. It is really insane how many contraptions they have already come up with, including a VR Mario Kart game and a VR rock climbing game. After years with a dried up arcade scene, I think the future looks bright for them once more. And in Denmark, retro arcades have started popping up all over the country. Especially the amazing people who started the Beep Beep Bar in Copenhagen needs a big shout out. Long live the arcade! And thank you for watching. I will catch you later.